Right, so the IEC says technically it can roll out the elections in October, launching its campaign today under the theme Every Voice Together. Let's speak to Masego Sheburi, Deputy Chief Electoral Officer with Electoral Matters at the IEC. Good evening and thank you so much for your time this evening. Could you give us an idea of the magnitude of the logistics that you have to organise?
Thanks for the opportunity. Election preparations typically begin about 24 months before the date on which an election is held. This is so because ahead of each local government election, the Municipal Demarcation Board undertakes a review of the network of wards. In this instance, the board handed to the IEC the ward boundaries late in 2020, and we commenced the process of looking at our network of voting stations to see where those voting stations have been impacted by the new ward boundaries so that we align them to the new ward boundaries and undertake consultation with political parties and agree on the choice of a voting station to service each of the voting districts. We have concluded that process. We are in the midst of finalizing our procurement for both the registration event that will be held over the weekend of the 17th and the 18th of July, as well as the necessary logistics required for the election day. We have in excess of 23,000 voting stations for which we must find a suitable venue, contract with the landlord, as well as provide materials in requisite quantities to ensure that voters can vote in conditions of relative safety and that the vote is convenient to them. So from that perspective, we are on track both for the registration weekend as well as for the election in October.
All right, so we're dealing with a situation, obviously, with Justice Dikgang Moseneke is currently reviewing whether these elections can be held in a free and fair way due to the concerns around COVID. We're going to get a result, hopefully, from him by the end of July. But also, we're seeing political parties are split on whether these elections should go ahead. Are you concerned how that uncertainty might affect voter turnout?
Obviously, we are concerned with any level of uncertainty, and hence the need to look at all the submissions by parties in a very objective and dispassionate manner. There is a constitutional standard as regards the holding of election, and it is twofold. The first is that the Constitution guarantees regularity of election, but it also demands that those elections must be free and fair. As it relates to the regularity, there's a time frame within which an election must take place. We are planning in terms of that time frame so that if an election is lawfully called, we are ready to undertake that election. As it relates to the freeness and fairness aspect, the Commission has appointed the Deputy Chief Justice, Justice Moseneke, to undertake an independent and dispassionate review of all submissions from the health fraternity, from political parties, as well as experts, to help the Commission to come to a conclusion whether the environment provided or the environment imposed by COVID, i.e. as it relates to restriction on free movement of persons, but also the rate of infections, are such that they militate against the holding of free and fair elections. So those are the two constitutional considerations under which we are pleading for these elections.
The IEC itself has today flagged concerns about the youth vote. It's always a problem. Why do you think young people might be more disinclined to turn up at the polls this year?
We think principally there are two reasons. One is that young persons have not had as many opportunities to register to vote as the older generations. The second one, stemming from our research, is that young people, like most other people, age cohorts in the country, are concerned with aspect of democracy, i.e. The performance of local government as a sphere of government, but also the conduct of political parties. What we find reassuring, though, is that from our research, nothing points to apathy on the part of young voters. In fact, our research concluded that once registered, young persons are more likely to vote than any age cohort. So we remain resolved to make available to young persons opportunities to register to vote so that they can remain engaged with the affairs of their country and influence the direction of development in their communities and in their country.
Thank you so much for chatting to us this evening. That was Masego Sheburi, Deputy Chief Electoral Officer with Electoral Matters at the IEC.